We are told medieval cities built the world we still admire. Cathedrals. Castles, walls, bridges, towers. Stone structures that survived fire, war, plague, and modern traffic. And in many cases, that is true. The problem is not whether people in the past could build. They probably could. The point is, could they under the conditions they tell us they were in? For those such vast extensions? For how many there were, and for the conditions they say they were in. The problem is not intelligence. The problem is not skill. The problem is math. When we look at a medieval cathedral, we usually see faith. We see art. We see devotion. But a cathedral is also a logistical event. It is quarrying. It is transport. It is scaffolding. It is metal tools. It is lime. It is timber. It is food. It is wages. It is administration. It is replacement labor when workers get sick, leave, die, strike, or are recruited elsewhere. The building is the visible part. The city that sustains the building is the hidden part. Take a city of 100,000 people. It sounds large. But now, remove children. Remove the elderly. Remove the sick. Remove clergy. Remove merchants. Remove domestic labor. Remove farmers who must continue producing food. Remove transport workers already tied to survival. Remove guards, officials, bakers, brewers, smiths, carters, millers, washerwomen, servants. What remains is not a city of 100,000 builders. It is a narrow, usable fraction. And that fraction must not only build, it must maintain life while building. That is the pressure point. A block of stone in a wall is not a block of stone. It is a chain of events. First, someone identifies a quarry. Then someone cuts the stone. Then someone shapes it, often at the quarry because transport is expensive. Then someone moves it. by cart, by river, by sled, by animal, by human force. Then someone lifts it. Then someone places it. Then someone accounts for it. Then someone gets paid. Then someone replaces the tool that broke while doing it. Every stone is a transaction between energy and organization. When the building is small, the transaction is manageable. When the building becomes monumental, the transaction becomes a system. The accepted answer is not weak. Cathedrals often took decades or centuries. They were financed by chapters, bishops, donations, relic economies, indulgences, civic pride, and political competition. Workers were not simply anonymous slaves of faith. Many were paid. Skilled masons traveled between sites. Construction seasons mattered because frost could stop mortar from binding. Stone could be dressed at the quarry to reduce transport load. This explanation is real. It explains a great deal. But it also opens a sharper question. If the system was this complex, why do we describe it so simply? A medieval city was not just a place. It was a machine with a low-energy ceiling. No diesel. No electric cranes. No reinforced concrete supply chain. No global logistics. Animal power was expensive because animals eat. Human labor was expensive because humans eat. Timber was not decoration. It was scaffolding, fuel, roofing, machines, carts, wheels, handles, and repair material. Lime required burning. Burning required fuel. Fuel required cutting, drying, hauling, and storage. The cathedral is not only stone, it is forest. It is field. It is road. It is river. It is taxation. It is belief converted into administration. At some point, we have to stop looking at these structures with the eyes of a tourist and start looking at them with the eyes of a logistician, not as postcards, not as heritage, not as background scenery for faith, empire, or architecture lectures, as mass, as energy, as scheduling, as food converted into muscle, as timber converted into scaffolding, as forest converted into lime, as a city forced to keep living while part of itself is being turned into stone. If we use the double library, the official account starts to strain. The first library says, "This is what the documents say." The second library asks, "What must be physically true for those documents to make sense?" And the problem is not faith. The problem is mathematics applied to physical reality. In a world without combustion engines, every calorie spent cutting, hauling, lifting and placing stone had to come from a body that had eaten human muscle. Animal muscle. Both expensive, both fragile, both dependent on harvests, weather, transport, and disease. Now take that city of 100,000 people again. Remove the people who grow food. Remove the people who process food. Remove the sick. Remove the old. Remove the children. Remove the clergy, administrators, guards, merchants, cleaners, bakers, brewers, smiths, and servants. What remains is not a heroic army of builders. It is a narrow working edge. And that edge is expected to carry a project that may last 200 years, while the city keeps cracking, burning, flooding, rotting, and demanding repair. That is the reset. Not disbelief. Accounting. And then there is the wood. For every cathedral of stone, there had to be a cathedral of timber. Scaffolds, hoists, ramps, workshops, roofs, carts, wheels, tool handles, temporary structures that disappeared when the job was finished. The stone remained, so we remember the stone. The wood vanished, so we forget the wood. But lime also had to be burned, and burning lime means fuel. Fuel means trees. Trees mean cutting, drying, hauling, storing, and guarding. So where is the shadow of that forest? Where is the true footprint of the wooden city that had to exist around the stone one? This is where the official story gives us a word. Faith. And faith matters. Faith can organize people. Faith can motivate sacrifice. Faith can hold a project across generations. But faith does not erase fuel costs. Faith does not make oxen weightless. Faith does not turn a small labor surplus into an infinite machine. So we arrive at the questions that are usually kept outside a polite room. What if the real mystery is not architectural? What if it is energetic? What if these buildings were not only symbols, but devices? Resonant machines. Instruments built at the scale of a city. Structures designed to stabilize a population's octave. The academic answer is that these were houses of worship. Maybe they were. But when we compare the plans of great cathedrals to later industrial and electrical sites, the resemblance can become uncomfortable. Vault, towers, naves, chimes, orientation, acoustic chambers, repeated geometries, metal, stone, water, height, and resonance brought into one body. Were they only places where people prayed? Or were they places where a civilization managed frequency? If the heart's resonance is not poetry but mechanism, then the building changes category. It stops being only a monument. It becomes infrastructure, not for moving goods, for tuning consciousness. And then another question appears. What if the weight itself was not always the same kind of problem? At certain cardinal points in the temporal spiral, could matter have behaved differently? Could density, gravity, or dimensional resistance have shifted with the octave? Could stone have been moved through vibration, resonance, or sound, rather than dragged through mud by starving peasants? I am not saying this is proven. I am saying that the logistical pressure is large enough that the question refuses to die. Because if the system we are given cannot fully pay the bill, then either the accounting is incomplete, or the system was not what we were told. This is the surplus anomaly. How does a society without modern sanitation, modern medicine, modern power, modern transport, or modern manufacturing sustain the economic excess required for buildings that do not grow food and do not directly defend the city? The official answer is devotion. The conscious answer is colder. The system that built these works may not be the same system described in our books. Maybe we are not looking at the beginning of a civilization climbing upward. Maybe we are looking at the residue of a civilization coming down. Technologies suppressed, functions renamed, machines reclassified as sacred spaces, power systems converted into monuments after the operators disappeared. A miniature reactor is not always a metal cylinder. Sometimes it may be a geometry. Sometimes it may be a choir. Sometimes it may be stone arranged so precisely that the building becomes a circuit for the human heart. And perhaps that is why everything feels frozen. For a century, we have been told that progress is accelerating. But the deeper architecture of life feels strangely stalled. Energy remains centralized. Consciousness remains managed. The small reactor is always coming. The open breakthrough is always tomorrow. And the great machines of the past sit in plain sight, renamed as religion, tourism, and culture. Maybe we are hearing the metal noise of a collapsing octave. So when people speak about Gog and Magog, or Iran and Israel, or the next conflict that is supposed to explain the end of the age, maybe the true omen is not on the news. Maybe it is in the contradiction beneath our feet. The trace of a higher technology. The trace of a higher consciousness. Standing in the middle of our cities, disguised as heritage, disguised as worship, disguised as something already understood. And before the spiral makes its next movement, the question is simple. Were these cathedrals built to help us rise into the higher octave? Or were they left behind as the residue of a world that failed the jump before us? Maybe we are not moving toward a war. Maybe we are moving toward the moment when the music stops, and everyone has to find a chair in the octave they have built inside their own hearts. In that moment, tanks will not matter. Diplomacy will not matter. The headlines will not matter. Only the fundamental note will remain. The note that decides whether you stay in the stone or return through the dark door of supreme awareness.